quote unquote. What I mean by black people, how people will identify or the imagery of black people today, the standard of which physically, phenotype, what black people look today, these Europeans who are black in this context, who lived there prior to colonization, had these folklores of the Little Mermaid. Okay, it comes from black Europeans. White Europeans adopted that, right? But if we walk it that even further back, it goes back to Africa, right? So these Phoenicians and then other, the Berbers, and also people literally from eastern part of Africa, from the Horn of Africa of Somalia to Ethiopia to Eritrea, all the way up to Nubia, beyond to Egypt, and the landmass that they call the Middle East, which is called the Levant, which I like to call northwest of the motherland of Africa, or southwest of Asia, had these stories of what they call Little Mermaid, right? These are folklores that can be seen in India, in China. These folklores can also be traced back to Thailand, Cambodia. These folklores can be tied back to Africa. But where it first has been seen or witnessed or written from oral traditions, let me say that first, from oral traditions to written tradition, is African spirituality. That's where it comes from. So now, let me get to the Little Mermaid. All right. So the Little Mermaid, as you know, there was a character who, and recently, right, in the 21st century, less than 10 years ago, Little Mermaid was played by a black woman. There was a whole crazy, there was a whole social media meltdown. Yes. Right? Have you heard about that on TikTok and on Instagram and what is it called? X, formerly known as Twitter. Have you seen those type of postings about Little Mermaid being played by a black woman?
Yes, there are a lot of big news on that time about Little Mermaid. There are different point of views about it.
Okay. So, what are your views on that? I just want to pivot. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. So, what are your views on Little Mermaid in that question?
For me, it is okay to have it played by a black woman because that is the start of different representation or diversity in film. As long as the story is still there, the original story is still there, or there is a little tweak in the story, it's fine for me.
So you're fine with tweaking the story for contemporary times?
Yes, just a bit, tweak a bit the story, and it's okay for me to have a black main cast on a Little Mermaid. It's like a fresh touch in the story of Little Mermaid.
I do agree. It is a fresh touch, right? There was a whole debacle, but I do agree with your sentiment and with your point of view. Can I say one more thing before we move on? Really quickly. So the actress, her name is Halle Bailey, and this movie came out in 2023. So yeah, it's recent. So it's really, really recent. It came out 3 years ago. Doing a quick little research on it. So not research, but search on it. So it's Disney's The Little Mermaid, right? But here's the thing about this. Little Mermaid, once again, is a black folklore tradition from African spirituality. So it's only fitting that, in my opinion, that a black woman or a black lady should be playing anything dealing with mermaids. Now, over time, because of stolen valor and stolen identities and stolen, cultures, some people wouldn't say it that way. I do, but some people will say, well, cultures were merged, cultures were adopted, cultures were grafted in, cultures were influenced, and cultures have been a huge tapestry, a mosaic, if you will, blah, 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 blah. For me, I take it as, because we live in the contemporary times and we can literally look in the rearview mirror in history and understand what happened. These things were stolen, right? So that's my opinion. So to answer that question further, and this is my last point on it, is that this is my last point on that, is that it's okay with your sentiment that you brought out and that you said, it's okay for them to change it and modify it to a black woman because it's only fitting, not necessarily because you're trying to have a diversity quota, which is nothing wrong with that if you want to do that. In my opinion, I don't think that should be, but at the same time, I believe that the story should always have been and already have been utilized as a black lady. And every character, as far as being mermaids, should have been all black people, in my opinion, because knowing where the source material comes from. And most people have argued or saying, oh, a Little Mermaid is white, she's always been white, going back to the question. Well, yes, in this story, this version of this story, sure. But if you want to pay homage to where all of this comes from, then a black woman playing Little Mermaid is actually not offbeat, nor off key, nor tone deaf. It's actually the most appropriate thing you could do in that scenario. And in fact, not just her, but every Little Mermaid, every mermaid should be black. But I give it back to you.
So for the second question, so a while ago it's all about Little Mermaid, and now let's talk about Captain America.
Ooh.
So Captain America for me is like a really, really big superhero. Like, he has the strength, the ability, even if it's like a fantasy, it's like a face of America. When you see Captain America and you see the character who played in this film, he is white, he has strength, and he has the ability to conquer all. But for you, do you think, so this is the question, so do you think creating a black version of Captain America strengthens representation, or is it more important to create new original black characters or superheroes?
Very good question. So I'm going to say this. Captain America is dope. So let me not just skip over that part because you didn't mention that. Captain America is very much dope. I actually love the character of today's Captain America. I like how that character is being represented and has been represented as far as being the white Captain America. I think the source material for it, once again, was acquired, borrowed, stolen valor. Yet, if we're looking at just the material itself, I think the concept of Captain America in the 21st century is dope. And I think that there's nothing wrong with the novelty and the nostalgia of Captain America, because I was raised on that too. So all my kid superheroes, when I was a kid, all my superheroes, I respect, and I still have a type of admiration for, right? I definitely admire. But there's a lot of problematic, there's things that are problematic with Captain America. We look at the history of the comic and the character as such. But to go further, I'm going to stick with what I said earlier. You know, I don't think that Captain America should be changed from their original imagery of what the Captain America should have been, as far as from the context of what we're talking about. Now, I'm going to keep in that same logic because I introduced that point. I don't want to switch and be a hypocrite in that. At the same time, because I can agree with multiple truths here. You know, I'm okay with Captain America being black. And here's why. Because every major war that was fought, black people have been the turning point of each one, as far as it being successful or not. People of color, yes, but black men and black women have been the gold of the whole situation, right? Weighing on which side a war was going to go. Example, World War I. World War I. There is an infantry unit known as the Harlem Hellfighters. 369. Right? Infantry regime. These men brought hell to the war. They brought hell to hell. And if it wasn't for them, I'm not saying this